One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch it so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 4, Episode 7 of HBO's Westworld, entitled Metanoia. Before I get into the title, I want to read the episode description real quick. It says you want to have a drink at a time like this, which is a very clear reference to that line exactly that Maeve utters in the first scene, which is a simulation, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And then I want to talk about the term metanoia, which I assumed was like a word that means like you're paranoid of the metaverse or something. That could kind of play into Westworld, you know, the idea of like the metaverse or something like that. But no, that's not what metanoia means. It actually has a real definition, which I'm going to read. The first definition I found says a transformative change of heart. But I found another little kind of like addendum to that, which I think adds a little bit more to the definition. I don't know who this person Hunter is, but it says, according to Hunter and the Greek Orthodox Church, metanoia means to change one's mind, to expand it in such a way as to have a new perspective on the world or oneself. I think this most clearly and closely refers to the Man in Black / William, as the Man in Black is convinced to essentially flip everything we know or we thought we knew about this season on its head, ironically after his counterpart William questions / challenges his manhood. Like, is that not like typical man, right? Like, everything was going a way that we kind of had an idea where it was going. William goes, yeah, she fucking neutered you. You're a fucking coward. You're a piece of shit. Like, he fucking like berates the Man in Black and calls his manhood into question. And so then in response to show how much of a tough guy he is, he flips the entire thing on its head upside down. I'm like, man, look at this. The world is going to be ruined because of fragile masculinity. But here we fucking are. Well, we'll come back to that scene in a minute. But I want to talk about the episode first. This episode was kind of like the Nick Young meme of Westworld episodes. And the Nick Young meme, if you guys have ever seen it, it's like this confused guy going like this, and then you see all the question marks that pop around his head, pop up around his head. Nick Young was a player for the Lakers. That's him in that meme. But this episode was that. Like, there's a lot of questions. Like, I think this show in general has done a good job of kind of like setting up questions and answering them, oftentimes in the same episode. But this one set up a lot of questions that it didn't answer and left me with a lot of Nick Young meme moments. Because it's like, just when we thought we kind of had it figured out, everything kind of like goes in an entirely different direction. It's almost like they, they flip the chessboard upside down, flip the table over, and just now we got to start all over kind of. But I find that to be intriguing only because I don't feel like everything we saw up to this point was pointless. I just feel like the direction we thought we were going, they have something entirely different planned. So I guess we'll see. But this episode opens, like I said, in widescreen, which is an indication that we're in a simulation. It's one of the simulations that Bernard ran when he was in the Sublime. And there's a version of Maeve there. And he essentially tells her, you know, like, this world is done. Nothing's gonna pan out the way we like. Everything is a wrap. But there's still kind of like hope for us. We can persist, I think, within the Sublime is what he's trying to say. And he asks her if she's interested in going there. And she essentially is like, yeah, I want to go there with my daughter. And he goes, is that what you would really do? Or is that what I think you would do, since we're in one of his Sublime simulations? And she essentially says, why don't you go ask the actual me and we'll find out. So, and he also says that, given the knowledge that that essentially everything they're doing is futile aside for what they might be doing for themselves, does she still want to fight with him? And she agrees. When we later return to this scene in real life, she voluntarily tells Bernard that she wants to go to the Sublime when all this is over. So that's something that I think is interesting and of note. And then we also see Bernard plant something for later. And I'll come back to this later in this video. But in the first scene, the one that's a simulation, we just see them walking down this tunnel. And it's the scene where they have this conversation about why Bernard is always in the back and Maeve is in the front. when this happens in real life, the same thing happens, but Bernard plants something along the side of the wall. We don't see what it is. But I'll come back to that later as well. We also see Christina and Teddy. Christina wakes up in her room. Teddy's creepily sitting at the foot of her bed. Nothing wrong with that, right? And Teddy tells her that they are, let me get the quote, reflections of the people who made them. He says reflection of the people who made us. And she ends up, well, hold on, just a second here. I want to see if, okay, never mind. So yeah, he tells her that they're a reflection of the people who made them. This kind of, this really resonates with her, and I think she kind of not just wants to test it out, but I think this scene in the bathtub is kind of like has a dual meaning, right? Like, I think that she literally like tries to drown herself to see if she can't die or if it's difficult for her to die. But I also think that this is like a metaphorical kind of baptism slash rebirth for this character. Like, she goes under that water as Christina and she comes out as Dolores, essentially. Like, not Dolores like we know Dolores, but at least Christina with the knowledge, and not necessarily the knowledge of Dolores, but the personality of Dolores and the knowledge of what she can and can't do. And she clearly goes and starts to use that power within the world. So I like this scene because I don't think it's just a literal look of like, oh, the body died, and but since she's not an actual regular person, it comes back, comes back to life. She's cool. Like, I think that is what happens, but I think it's also a metaphorical body dying and this person coming back, especially when we consider too that we later find out after Teddy and Christina go to Olympiad and essentially have everyone destroy everything. He tells her that the world that she's in is real and that she's not. Now, I don't know what that means. You guys can, this is the one thing that I couldn't even come up with a theory for, how she exists within the real world, but they can't see her. And then how do we account for her being able to interact with her boss, like, and other people with that Peter guy? Like, how does she interact with these people if she's not present in that world? So I don't know what that means, but I think that the metaphorical change, the leaving of the Christina body and kind of emerging as the Dolores body, combined with her having the knowledge of what she can and can't do, I think we kind of essentially have Dolores back at this point. But I really, really want to know, I don't know, I can't wrap my head around, even now heading into the finale, what or who exactly Christina is. And I think that's interesting. But, like I said, he tells her that the world they're in is real, but she's not. And we later kind of get a confirmation of this when her and Teddy are going, through the back hallways of Olympiad. They turn and go immediately down a corridor that we don't see where they go. We just see them go down this corridor. And then Frankie and Stubbs emerge from that direction as soon as they disappear around it. And there's no sign of an interaction. So we know that they didn't see Christina and Teddy. Now, the question is, did Christina and Teddy see Frankie and Stubbs? I don't know. But I think that's at least confirmation that they couldn't see, that Frankie and Stubbs couldn't see Christina and Teddy. Too many names in this episode. And I think it also confirms, too, that they're all of our main characters are now in the same time and place. But I could be wrong because you know how the show goes. But it feels like Frankie and Stubbs are in Olympiad at the same time as Christina and Teddy. They just can't see one another. And also at that same time at the tower, we have Bernard and Maeve. So that's kind of why I feel that way. So after the scene where Bernard kind of essentially seems to open up the Sublime at the Hoover Dam, and they leave after he's planted whatever that was in that one tunnel, they return to Temperance and link up with Frankie and Stubbs, and they decide to again go their separate ways. Frankie and Stubbs are going to go to Olympiad to try to get Caleb, and Bernard and Maeve are going to go to the tower. And there's an interesting goodbye scene, I think, between Bernard and Stubbs here that plays out as a goodbye to Stubbs. Like, hey, man, you've been real. I really appreciate you. and Stubbs puts together that he must not survive this encounter. But in actuality, it's Bernard who dies in this encounter. And there's a nice, not in this encounter, but in this episode, but there's a nice scene, I think, where, I don't call it a nice scene, but there's an interesting scene when Stubbs, Frankie, and Caleb are escaping from Olympiad, and they're in like the subway, and they go behind this grated door. It kind of looks like a jail cell, and bullets ricochet off the bars, and like Stubbs like touches his body like, oh man, I'm okay, and he's like, yeah, I didn't die. And I think that's interesting that he still is under the impression that he's supposed to die here, and of course he wouldn't know any different. That I think Bernard was the one giving the farewell. And then it also makes me wonder too, if Bernard had said, yeah, we're separating because I'm gonna die, would Stubbs have even agreed to be separate and go on this Caleb mission, or would he have insisted on staying with Bernard to prevent that? So to prevent that actuality. So in order to make sure that the Stubbs part of this storyline goes the way it's supposed to go, Bernard let Stubbs believe that he was the one that was going to die. So I think that was kind of interesting. A lot to glean from that scene with not a lot being said. Let's see, where am I next? Now, we see Hale at the top of the tower. She sends out a message to everyone. Essentially says, stop fucking around with your human bodies. It's time to transcend. Enough is enough. And interestingly enough, she starts to transcend herself prior to shutting down the cities, which kind of struck me as odd. Like, why would you... wouldn't you want to see that through before you decide to transcend yourself? Like the transcending seemed a little bit premature for Hale. But let's see, where am I? I had something I wanted to mention with the transcending thing, but I think that's going to be later in my notes. So I'll get. Oh, it's the very next thing. This is why I feel like I should like number my notes so I can be like, all right, I just went over number 10. Let me go to number 11. But I want to talk about the transcending because I always thought that the transcending was just kind of them uploading themselves into the sublime, but it kind of sounds like, and for one, I don't even know for sure that Hale would even have access to that. I don't think she does. So why would I think that? But it sounds like Hale expects the hosts that are uploaded into the sublime to join her in her world that she's creating. And it makes me wonder, when she says transcend, we see a person in this episode get their pearl removed and put into this giant armless kind of robot. Is that what transcending is essentially an upgrading of your hardware, and you get put into a much better body? It can allow you to do more, be a little bit more indestructible, have a little bit more flexibility with your body, no pun intended, than if you're in an actual regular human body that they've crafted up in the parks. And if so, does that mean that there is somewhere a collection of those giant armless robots that are ready to fuck shit up? I don't know. I'm still not entirely clear on transcending. I thought I was, but not anymore. After she mentions wanting the people from the sublime to occupy her world. So yeah, that threw me off a little bit. But like I mentioned earlier, Hale plans to shut down the cities, and the plural use here answered my question that I had in an earlier video where I was like, how much is taken over? Is it just this one city that seems like New York? Is it all the United States? Is it all of the world? And she does say cities in the plural, and she also mentions to the man in black about, have fun and, running your city for one last day before I shut that shit down. If the man in black controls this one city or runs this one city, and she used the plural term cities, does that mean that she has multiple cities conquered, and does she also have multiple people running them? And if she does, are these multiple people different variations of the man in black? Are they different individuals who we might know? I don't think that's anything we're going to find out this season, but I don't know, just something to kind of mull over. And I guess it ultimately doesn't matter at the end, is the idea of losing his own city is too much for the man in black to contend with. And you couple that with having the Flesh William calling him a little bitch, and the man in black kills William, Hale, Maeve, Bernard. He sets a message into the tower to instruct everyone to fight each other in kind of like this fight for survival, and he destroys the tower. So, so whatever, however many cities, whatever, it doesn't matter. William / Man in Black burns it all down. He emerges in full Man in Black garb. And when he destroys the tower, I wonder if that means that they're essentially stuck in this survival mode. Like, I don't think you set everyone to fight for survival against one another, destroy the tower with the knowledge that destroying the tower is going to essentially turn off the flies and everyone's going to have control over themselves again. I think that was kind of like the idea, and we see Stubbs do this, the idea of like turning a key and then breaking the edge of the key off so no one can get the key, so no one can easily get the key and turn it back. I think him destroying the tower was the equivalent of that. Like, I've set everybody to kill, and now I'm gonna knock this key off, and now no one can unturn this key. And I think him destroying the tower is him making it so that no one can unturn that directive. So that's pretty interesting. And one last thing, before William arrives to kill Bernard, and maybe killing Bernard wasn't his intention, but before he arrives and ultimately ends up killing Bernard, we hear Bernard recording a message. We don't know who it's to. We don't know the reason for it, but I'm going to read you guys the message verbatim, and I'm going to read it punctuated the same way the subtitles do, because I feel like there could be kind of like a dual meaning here. So the message says, "There's time only for one more game." And even "there's time only" sounds kind of weird. Like, when you say there's only time for one more game, or there's time for only one more game, there's time only for one more game. I don't know. Maybe that's just the way Bernard talks. There's time only for one more game if you give her that choice. Then there's a long pause. And then he says, "You can't miss, reach with your left hand." Now, one, what is the game? Obviously, there's only time for one more game. What could that be? And that could be something that plays out in season 5. Who is the her that he's referring to? Because all the women are dead except for Dolores, right? Hale's dead, Maeve's dead, all the important women, I should say. So who else? Who is the only her that's left? Dolores, right? And then he says, "You can't miss, reach with your left hand." Now, before I talk about that, I want to point out that I went back and watched this scene again and paid extra close attention to the subtitles because I wanted to see the punctuation. There's time only for one more game, period. If you give her that choice, period. Then there's a long pause. Now, the way he says it would necessitate a period in the subtitles, but I wonder if the way the inflection is meant to kind of cover up comma placement. So what I mean by that is he saying there's time for only one more game if you give her that choice? Like, if you give her the choice to have one more game, there's only time enough for one more game if you give her the choice to have that one more game. Or is he saying there's time only for one more game? If you give her that choice, you can't miss. So you see what I'm saying here? Like, is he saying that in that situation, he's saying there's only time for one more game. Now, if you give her the chance to participate in that game, you can't miss. So you see what I'm saying about like weird comma placement and that long pause, and like it makes me wonder if that impacts the interpretation of this sentence. And then he says, "You can't miss, reach with your left hand." I'm assuming that refers to whatever it is that Bernard planted in that tunnel at the beginning of the episode. I'm assuming someone is going to be in that tunnel at the climax of the finale, and the reach with your left hand is going to be this person reaching for whatever it is that Bernard planted in that spot. And they can't miss with whatever it is that I'm assuming. Maybe it's a gun, and they grab the gun, they can't miss that shot. But I guess the bigger question is who is going to be reaching with their left hand? Who is the her? And I'm assuming that whatever this person finds with their left hand is going to be used on this person who is the her. Is that person Dolores? Because that's really the only person we have left. But again, I have some theories here. So let's see. Let me make sure I haven't missed anything else before I get into these last few things that I want to wrap up with. Couple of questions as far as that message goes that Bernard left. who would be able to receive that message in that tunnel. So like if you're in that tunnel, right, and say you've been shot and you're down right by that spot that Bernard planted something, who would have the ability to receive that message? Like, okay, are they going to have like a tablet like Bernard has, or is this a person who can just kind of like get the message in their head? I think it's important who the message is for to help us understand how they receive it. Okay, yeah, that was my next question, was who would be there with that tech and the knowledge necessary to relieve that message. And of course, who is the her, which I already mentioned. So before I get into a couple of questions and my thoughts on, one theory I have on who the her could be, I want to talk about one problem I had with this episode, which was the killing of Maeve, Bernard, Hale, and William. Did you guys feel anything for that? Like, even like the shock of that, I didn't even feel the shock, because deaths mean so little in this show at this point. So little is overstating how much they mean. They mean nothing. Deaths mean nothing on this show. Like, I've never felt so empty in the moments of a major character death as I was in those four. Like, I wasn't even surprised, like, because like no deaths have any weight on this show. Like, I've seen these people die however many times, and they get brought back. Like, so even the fact that what William did changes the direction of the show and kind of flips the show on its head, that only really resonated with me once I started thinking about the episode after. It didn't resonate in that moment because, to me, nobody on this show can die because there's no stakes here. People are always brought back, and I think that is the biggest mistake that this show has made, even more so than being convoluted for the sake of. The biggest mistake that this show has made is killing people all the fucking time and bringing them back. Like, no deaths mean shit. They even try, like, even Teddy, like, when Teddy died, they made a big deal out of it. And who are we looking at now in season fucking 4? Teddy. Like, how many times has Maeve died? Like, I have no clue. A dozen? Like, it meant nothing to me. And I feel like that was, I feel like that was supposed to mean something, but I can't imagine Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan being stupid enough to think that I can watch Maeve die for the 14th time and go, oh my God, this changes everything. Oh, this is so impactful. What a huge character death. Like, it meant nothing. I felt nothing. Not disappointment, not surprise, not sadness, nothing. I'm just like, okay, well, all right. Like, it meant nothing. And I think that's a big flaw in this show. Not a big flaw in this episode, but just something of note that meant absolutely nothing. Even as important as that was to the story, I felt nothing watching it. So, a couple of questions heading into the finale. Why would Christina do this elaborate fire alarm pulling ruse when she could just be like, hey, everybody go ahead and get out? Like, and writers, stay and fuck up all your narratives. Like, what was the fire alarm? The only thing I can think of is that when she verbally gives these directives, only people who can hear her respond to it. So the fire alarm was to get everyone off the floors that Christina wasn't on. But I still thought that in the moment, I'm like, why'd you just direct her to pull the fire alarm? You just direct her and everyone else to get the fuck out. But I don't know, I thought that was weird. But it's probably that. The fire alarm, like, the people can only respond to her if they can hear her. So she can't just kind of like think it like, you motherfuckers on 3, get out of here. Like, I don't think she can do that. I think she has to, she's on floor 47. So I don't think she can just speak and the people on 3 are here. So like I said, maybe the fire alarm is to get the people out that can't hear. Should it be a much bigger red flag for Frankie that Caleb is the same age? Like, she notes it and then goes, what did they do to you? And he goes, I'm me. And then she goes, and then everything just continues off. I feel like that needs to be revisited in the finale. Like, they need to have a conversation, like, seriously. Like, you are literally, like, she should know. Like, you are literally not my father. Like, we can behave as if you are. Like, you are him in virtually every way. We can do that, but Yeah, you know you're not him, right? Like, you know that. And then I also wonder, too, there are aspects of Bernard's plan that we know of but haven't seen play out yet. Like the idea of him making a copy of Frankie. The idea that he wanted to make copies of other people on her team. What is the copy making for him? Because we know that he sees one way in how all this ends. It ends with him dying. He sees a way for everyone to make. He sees a path. What is his plan? Making copies of people. Like, what's he gonna do? I don't know, but I guess we'll find out next week. And then lastly, where is Maya, Christina's roommate? We just stopped seeing her randomly, and generally in my experience, when you stop seeing a fairly prominent character who you've been seeing fairly often up to that point, it's because the show wants you to forget about that person. It now has the opposite effect on me. I thought, man, we ain't seen Maya in a minute. She must be important. Makes me wonder if Maya is the her that Bernard is referring to, which further makes me wonder, we know that Hale has Christina there essentially on her behalf, like working for her. Do you think that maybe Maya is Hale? Like there's a Hale / Dolores Pearl in Maya, and that's her way of kind of like keeping an eye on Christina without physically being there? And maybe that's the her that Bernard is referring to? Because I can't see it being Dolores. I mean, well, I can, but that's too obvious because she's the only her left. Now, of course, they can do what they always do and bring back Maeve or bring back Hale, whatever. But I don't know, just something I'm throwing out there in case it's just something out of left field. And then also, like I said, I do think it's important that we haven't seen Maya. Now, it could just be that Maya's just not that important and they're just not going to have her on anymore. But her insistence on getting Christina like out of the house on these dates, essentially facilitating the date with Teddy, which now has resulted in this awakening for Christina. Like, Maya has been kind of insistent on putting all of this into play. So Maya must be working. Maybe Maya has a Bernard pearl in her. Like, maybe Bernard's inside Maya. Because it seems like there's a positive motivation to awakening Christina, which Hale wouldn't have. So, I don't know. Food for thought. So, fun episode. Lots to theorize about in the comments. Let me know what you think. And I will see you guys next week for the finale. Till then, peace.